Are you the parent of a PDA child or teen and feeling completely stuck? If so, today's live show is for you. Hi, I'm Casey. I'm the founder of At Peace Parents. And today we are doing our very first live show with two amazing parents who have volunteered to be spot coached with me using the skills that we learn in order to help parents get unstuck. So, welcome everybody. It's our first time doing this. And I think without further ado, we're going to invite our first parent into the studio. Hello.
Hi.
How are
Morning.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you tuning in from?
I'm in California, Northern California, Bay Area.
Awesome. Very cool. It looks like you're in your car.
I am. Yes, I didn't want, little ears to hear.
All good. All good. Well, thank you for being here and being willing to be vulnerable. I have your question here, and I was wondering if you wanted to restate it or if you'd like me to read it.
You can read it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I desperately need help with how to handle equalizing behavior against my 2-year-old. When my 4-year-old PDAer out of nowhere hits, kicks, hurts her. It can come on so abruptly with no signs of her becoming dysregulated. What language is best to use to not shame my PDAer, but at the same time validate my 2-year-old's experience? Also, advice on how to allow for my 2-year-old more autonomy in her play with her sister. I want to be able to have a voice, her to be able to have a voice as well. She also is showing signs of PDA. Please help. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add or provide context on?
Yeah, so I was thinking about it last night, and yeah, I would love your advice about the difference also between like when this equalizing behavior happens, when she's like in a dysregulated, like a very clearly meltdown mode. I can clearly see that she's, in her fight flight response
Yeah,
versus that seemingly like regulated, like she just came home from school and she out of the blue just kind of like pushes
yeah,
or taunts like look what I have, and I know what she's doing. So yeah, I just would like some help, like if I navigate those two situations in a different way. Um, Also, I oftentimes, I'm new to PDA.
okay.
I just learned about it in April and I gave birth to my third child in May. So
So no
I
time to study.
I have taken, yeah, I have done as much as I can. But I kind of lost my train of thought.
No, no worries. No, I hear you. Okay, so it's a short question, but there's a lot in here. Okay, so normally what I do to support parents is I break things into pieces that we can address using some skills to get clarity and get unstuck together. Um, so I'd love it if we could take like each part one at a time to hopefully move the needle for you. Does that sound okay?
Mhm. I
Okay,
remember
great.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I typically, because I'm so new to learning about it, I typically go to like a freeze response. Like
yeah,
my nervous system gets completely activated and it's like instead of saying anything, I just like separate. And then I usually will like go back to the 2-year-old and like comfort her or say things to her. It's like what do I do with, what do I say to my 4-year-old?
yeah. Okay, so the way that I approach coaching with parents, especially if we're talking about boundaries, siblings, screens, school, or violence, is we're going to be looking at it through a decision-making framework rather than like what's right or wrong, because each family has like unique values, constraints, as you said, your own freeze response. So we're going to look at it specifically in your family and approach it neutrally, and then just decide what the best options are for your family. So we'll walk through that. But first, I'd love, just for a refresher for everyone, and I always do this even in the programs where it's like, even if we're 8 weeks into the program, I'm reminding people of what I call the PDA lens, which is like, why is this happening? How does the brain work? How does the nervous system work? Okay, so let's start there and then we'll move into the decision making. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, what we know about PDA is that anytime your daughter's subconscious brain, her limbic system or survival brain, perceives that she doesn't have autonomy or equality, it's going to activate her nervous system, whether or not you see it, right? So even if she's appearing fine or doing well at school, she is likely perceiving those losses of autonomy and equality, right?
Mhm.
So when she comes home, she's got some buildup in the system. And it's almost like, the reason we call it equalizing behavior is because she, in order to get back to a safe nervous system, needs to feel above others, right? Or a scenario. And so who's she going to do that with? The safest person, which is likely you,
Mhm.
and or the weakest or a weak person, which is like a younger sibling. Okay? So when she gets home from school, even if she was great there, even if her teachers were like, she's a model student and she's like, so she's a leader, she's wonderful, she made side contact, all the things, um, she's going to come home and sort of need to equalize, right? And so it sounds like it's being targeted at the 2-year-old. What I heard you say is like she doesn't look dysregulated, but it comes out of nowhere, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
very typical of like how we want to understand the logic of the behavior. It's a tipping point rather than like what happened right before caused her to lash out at her younger sibling. Okay. So, yeah, you can't always see the signs of dysregulation, but anytime she's like, she goes right into her survival brain if she perceives that the 2-year-old is like getting more attention from you or moving toys around in a way that she doesn't like, or even her just existence as another child in the house is going to set off all of a sudden that survival part of the brain, right? So with a PDA kid, it's like there is no yellow zone. So it's like it can happen in a moment of just like she perceives she's below her or doesn't have autonomy in play, and she's boom right into equalizing.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
100%, yes.
Okay, so I'm describing what feels true to you and your family.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, like this, yeah, once I discovered PDA and you were actually the first person somebody sent me resources around, it was like a huge aha, like everything made sense.
Okay, cool. So the PDA lens, that's what we call the PDA lens. Okay. So, yes, it can come on abruptly with no signs of dysregulation, and it might not even be related to you, the home, or the sibling. It's like building up from school or even earlier in the week. So, that moves us into more of our decision making about like, what the heck do I do with this? Right? And there's two areas we can look at together. One is like the bigger picture decision making of like, okay, she's at school all day and it's building up in school, and then she gets home and equalizes, which is a nervous system response. We could look structurally at like school, we could look at changing accommodations in school. We could look at that, which is more of the preventative, or
Mhm.
we could look at like school has to happen. You have 2 other kids. She has to go to school. That's a constraint, and therefore, I wanna explore what my options are in the moment that this is happening.
Yes.
So which of those 2 feels
The
aligned?
second.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Um, okay, so here's the hard part. So we're gonna go into decision making, and this skill that we're gonna talk about can be really triggering and grievy because we're really gonna be focused on, like, only what's under our control, because if we try and focus on her behavior, it's gonna make it worse.
Mhm.
Okay, so everything we're gonna talk about is not like, "What should I do to make her do X or not do X?" It's gonna be, "What can I do in this situation?"
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Specifically, like, I would love guidance with, like, the language.
Great. Yes. We will, I'm gonna pull up the decision-making framework. I know you're on a phone, so it might be a little hard to see, but I'm gonna guide you through it, and we're gonna get you some clarity if that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Um, all right. Okay, so I am just gonna go in here. Okay, so the first thing we wanna do, Dominique, is just talk about constraints for your specific family. Okay, so what that means is, like, things you can't change in the moment you're making a decision. Like, for example, your daughter comes home from school and she's equalizing against the 2-year-old. You can't, like, in that moment, change your husband's career, if you have a husband, and make him
Yes.
gay, right? Or, like, you can't change your nervous system in the moment that you have a freeze response. So we just wanna acknowledge and accept, like, what your constraints are for your specific family. So it could be, I know one constraint that you've said is, like, you have 3 kids.
Yes. I have, and my baby's 3 months, so the constraint would be, like, I can't be with my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old all the time, which is some advice I saw on some other PDA was like, "Be with them always," and I'm like, "That's not realistic."
Yeah, that's why we're outlining constraints.
Yeah.
Because this is like real life. Okay, so next constraint, do you or your partner, co-parent, if you have one, work outside of the home or
My husband works outside of the home, and he works, sometimes he's not home until, like, 6 between 6:30 and 7 at night.
okay. Do you have any caregiving support?
I have family, my mom helps a lot.
Okay, that's great. So, is there a constraint there in terms of how much she can support or how much she is able to engage in a, non-traditional way of supporting kids?
She's she's definitely, like, learning,
Yeah,
um, but I think because I don't really know fully how to advise her, so then, yeah, there would be a constraint with, like, we're kinda both in the same boat of, like, not really knowing the best approach.
and is learning, okay. So I'm gonna put also mom has freeze response, and, you don't have to share this, but usually I like to understand if, like, that is it can just be, like, because you're hearing the sounds of panic and the perception of danger and life threat from your child, your nervous system activates. That's very normal. Because, like,
Mhm.
your child has a nervous system disability, fluctuating, and it's not just anxiety, it's the sounds, movements, tone of voice of another human who's experiencing or perceiving danger or life threat. So it's very, very typical slash normal that you would react like this. But sometimes parents have, like, childhood trauma, their own neurodivergence, a sensitive nervous system, and we
I
would just add that.
Yeah, I definitely have a sensitive nervous system. I'm diagnosed with OCD, but after, like, learning about this, I'm like looking into it whether or not it's like internalized PDA versus OCD because it just feels like it fits
Yeah. Okay,
much
great.
more.
All right. So potentially internalized PDA, which would mean more sensitive responses. Okay, is there any other constraint you'd like to mention? Well, we talked about your daughter is in school.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to hold these constant, meaning these don't change as we are making our decisions about the moment that your 4-year-old comes in and is like targeting the 2-year-old, which believe me, I've been through. Okay, so we're going to outline only what's under your control as options without judgment, like just anything that is possible that you could do realistically within the constraints. Okay. So option 1 is do nothing. Like do nothing when your PDA daughter equalizes against the 2-year-old. Option 2 is you could do nothing physically, but tell PDAer to stop. And once you make your decision, I'll help you with the language. Okay.
Okay.
But right now we're just making a decision as to whether you even want to say something or if you just want to like have your action be what signals to the sibling that you're there and keeping her safe. Tell PDAer to stop, which could be like, you could do it like, I'm noticing your body isn't safe right now. Option 2, you could remove the 2-year-old and say nothing. Oops, sorry. Option 4, remove the 2-year-old and say something like, your body isn't safe right now, so I am taking Sally to this room. Option 5, you could remove the PDAer and say nothing. Option 6, remove the PDAer and say something to signal to the sibling that you've seen it and you're doing something about it. Option 7, put yourself physically between them. Option 8, put yourself physically between them and say something. Okay. Is there any other option that you can think of that you have control over?
No, not that I can think of, no.
Okay. So normally when I do this with a family, one of the things I've written is like, oh, that's what we're doing right now.
Mhm.
And that's what I call the status quo. And then usually we pick another option that feels reasonable and compare it to the status quo through a cost benefit, which we're going to do together. So which one of these feels like your status quo or what you normally do?
I feel like I've done them all. I think it just depends on the situation, but, and the severity. Um, Probably number 3.
Okay,
Yeah, because I don't leave my, 2-year-old alone.
great. Okay. So usually option 3, and I know in your question you had mentioned wanting like a script that you could say. So are you interested in comparing it to option 4, or is something else calling to you?
Um, No, 4's good.
Okay, cool. So we're going to compare option 3 and 4. What's important about this step is what we've done here is we've laid out all your options, right? There is no other option unless we go back to the constraints and like hire a caregiver, have grandma be there more, you know, something that we haven't made the decision about. So this process is also, I hope, going to support you to get out of that, like seeking an expert who has a solution that's like, oh, if I just did this movement break, or if I just said it this way with declarative language, it wouldn't be a problem. Because it's not. This is what it is. And so we're looking at how to maneuver within this reality together. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It makes sense.
I know you don't like
Um, I
it.
know. I'm like, does this mean that like the equalizing behavior will never go away?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, okay.
So if we want to look at decreasing equalizing behavior, we would have to probably look at the school equation.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so because right now, especially with the 3-month-old, that's a constraint. We're moving into the what to do given
Got it.
that there will be some equalizing.
Okay.
Yeah. And also like keeping in mind that the more that you move into this acceptance of these are the options and I can't control my daughter's behavior, the more she's going to neuroset safety.
Okay. Yeah,
Because
that makes sense.
because anytime we're even subtly without words wanting to change their behavior or expecting them to be different, they're perceiving a loss of autonomy. Even
Yeah,
if we're not.
I've witnessed that for sure. Like just in learning about this and like already like subconsciously or consciously on my part, like kind of like not coming at it from a control, like trying to get her to school. And already like I can see a huge difference in that.
Yeah, so with this part, we're radically turning the control back on like, I can only control myself, and I'm making decisions within the constraint that all of us as parents of PDAers face, which is I'm either activating or accommodating them. That's it. There's no in between, right? That doesn't mean we never set boundaries, but it does mean that we have to accept that that's the constraint of our lives.
Okay, I never heard that before. Activating or accommodating.
So
So the
like,
boundary would be like activating.
yeah. So for example, if we remove the 2-year-old and say nothing, and we're going to go through this in the cost benefit, there will be some activation because she won't have autonomy over getting to play with her 2-year-old. With option 4, it might activate her even more because you're saying something about like your body isn't safe right now, and then she feels like you're above her and it activates. That's okay because we're looking at it through an entire family system cost benefit and working on accepting that this is what it is, right? This is what it is when you're parenting a PDA child. There isn't like a declarative language or lower demand perfect scenario where like you don't have to do this. Like in my
Yeah.
life, this is what I do all the time, and it gets easier and it gets less triggering and it does shift the energy, but when you're first looking at it like this, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah. But just that shift of like the acceptance, I feel like I go through like every single day. Like
Yeah.
grief, acceptance.
Yeah, and so what we wanna do is to help us move through this with sanity is, like, we wanna break down this idea of acceptance into, like, really practical, mundane things. Like, when my daughter gets home from school and starts equalizing, I know that these are my only options, and I'm accepting those as my options. It sucks. It sucks, right? Like, I wish I could just say to my kid, "Hey, stop, like, destroying your brother's things," but that's gonna activate him, and I know that it's gonna result in more equalizing, right? So that's the constraint that you and I share. But once we can start to accept that, life starts to get a lot easier because then we can make decisions and find our agency within that.
Okay.
Okay? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, my wheels are turning.
Okay, okay, I hope you weren't like, "Okay, I'm gonna get on this call in case he's gonna solve."
No.
Okay, 'cause I don't have a magic bullet that would make it not what it is.
No, I'm in the acceptance mode that this is, like, gonna be quite a long journey. It's not gonna be a simple fix.
It will, but, like, also what we're doing right now can take years to learn slash forever if parents don't wanna accept this, so, like, we're getting you unstuck, hopefully, in an hour more than, like, it took me, like, 2 years to start doing this, so
Yeah, no, I do feel very grateful that I stumbled upon this when I did. She's 4. So I
yeah,
think about what would have happened if I didn't learn about this until she was 8.
yeah,
Burnout would probably be inevitable. So I do feel like very grateful that I'm already like trying to figure things out.
yes, and you're doing a great job, and I know this is a lot, but we're moving through it. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna look at your 2 feasible options under your control, and we're gonna compare them through a nervous system cost benefit for everyone in the family, or everyone you think is relevant to the decision. So, we could include you, your PDA daughter, your 2-year-old, and your baby, or just the 3 of you. We can also include your husband, even though he's not there. It's up to you.
I would say probably um my kids, me and my 3 kids, because yeah, sometimes the baby is crying in the middle of it all.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is that a constraint or is that something that's impacted by what you decide?
Say it again.
Okay, so what I mean by that is, like, we're gonna look at the costs. Like, for example, if you wanted to consider your 3-month-old with the option 1, remove the 2-year-old and say nothing, would that have a cost or a benefit to the 3-month-old's nervous system? Or would it is the 3-year-old kinda, like, not aware of what's going on? 3-month-old.
I guess it would only like circumstantially, like if he's screaming and I have to leave him in, say, a bouncer crying while I'm taking away the 3-year-old, which then means I have to go into my room, which is a locked door for her to not have access. And then there's that my 4-year-old running down the hall
Mhm.
screaming. So I mean,
So,
yeah, I would take the 3-month-old with me.
in
With
either
3 kids.
scenario.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 months. Okay. Now let's look at option 1, which is remove the 2-year-old and with your 3-month-old from the room and say nothing to the PDAer. What would the cost to the nervous system of your PDAer be of that action? Would it be low, medium, or high, do you think?
Hi.
Okay. Would there be a benefit to her nervous system?
No.
Okay. So we'll just put NA. Now, what's the cost to your nervous system of this action, removing the 2-year-old and 3-month-old and not saying anything?
What's the cost? High. That would be like a high stressful situation. Cause yeah.
Yeah. Because of the high cost to the PDAer's nervous system, there's probably going to be running and yelling and throwing things potentially. Yeah. Okay. Now, is there a benefit to your nervous system of removing the 2-year-old and the 3-month-old and not saying anything?
I mean, yes, in the sense that if like the safety, like I know now, like no one's going to get, you know,
Her.
hurt.
Okay. So would you say medium or high?
Uh, benefit, medium.
Okay. Now we're going to skip over parent 2, sibling 1. So that would be your 2-year-old. What is the cost to her nervous system of you removing her and the 3-month-old and not saying anything about what happened?
Medium.
Okay. You're doing great. This is not an easy exercise. Is there a benefit?
Yeah, I would think so, yes. Like
Would you say?
she's with me.
Is it
Uh,
low, medium, high, would you say?
I would say it's probably high.
Okay. Now, sibling 2 is the 3-month-old. So, is there a cost to the 3-month-old's nervous system of you scooping him up? Sounds like a him.
Mhm.
Scooping him up and the 2-year-old and taking them to another room without saying anything to the PDAer?
Um, Probably not.
Okay. Would there be a benefit?
Um, I guess if he was crying and then I was able to hold him, yes.
Okay, so low, medium, high.
Um, High.
Okay, great. All right, so we did that for option 1, which is what you normally do. And we're just going to compare it to the second option, which is the same thing, but you're adding in a script to signal this happened, I saw it, it's not okay. Right? So
Mhm.
something like to your 4-year-old, your body isn't safe right now, so I'm taking Sally and John to the other room. Okay, so the script is not going to change the behavior.
Mhm.
The script is going to signal to the 2-year-old, I saw that, I acknowledge it, I'm moving you to this room.
Mhm.
So part of the acceptance and going back to the PDA lens is like, we can have the perfect declarative language script, and it's not going to change the fact that the energy behind it is us wanting them to change their behavior, and then they're going to fixate on the behavior. So we want to think of the script.
Mhm.
I know we're going through a lot of greavy stuff right here. The purpose of a script is not to change the behavior of the PDAer. It's a cue that we're using for the 2-year-old. And it's okay to use that, acknowledging that it might have an impact or cost to the PDAer's nervous system. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So would you say there's a so option 2, we're going to go through the same thing. What is the cost to your PDAer's nervous system of option 2? Same action, but stating like this isn't okay type of declarative script.
Okay. High.
Okay. Is there a benefit?
I guess I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't know if like over time that is like
So
she feels safe because I am setting about I don't know.
okay, so That's a good question. So over the long term, I think the action of having boundaries that are like baseline is a good thing for a family, but in the moment, it's
Mm,
going to activate her. Okay. So I should have been more clear that this decision making is just in the present moment. Okay.
okay.
Just in the
Okay.
present moment.
So no, it would not.
Okay. So we would say NA. Now, what about you? Is there an additional cost? Because you mentioned you have a freeze response. So is it going to make you even more activated to feel like you need to say something? Or is it going to feel like a relief that you have a script that you
A
can
relief,
deliver? Okay,
a relief that I have like a script because it feels just wrong to not say anything
great. Okay,
for like my 2-year-old's sake.
perfect. So for the cost, let's look at the cost and the benefit to you. So the cost, do you believe of doing this action is still going to be high, or would it be medium or low to your nervous system?
It would be less so, so maybe medium.
Great. And let's talk about the benefit that you just mentioned. So it feels like it's aligned with your values. You're having a script would like support you and your nervous system in that moment. So would you say it's a low, medium, or high benefit to you of the option two?
Um, Medium high.
Great.
High.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Now let's go to your 2-year-old. So what would be the cost to your 2-year-old of action number 2 with the script?
I don't think it would change
Okay.
the cost.
So medium still?
Yeah.
Okay. And then benefit, would that be the same too?
Mhm.
Okay. And then what about cost to and benefit to 3-month-old?
I think it would stay the same.
Stay the same. Okay, great. Now, the next step in this process is comparing your two options through this lens, the family system. And often, not always, what we see is we're deciding between two shitty options. Okay. So it's not always clear, like, oh, this is going to resolve it. Sometimes it does, but we're going to go through and compare. So I'm just going to compare for option one the cost versus the benefit to the PDAer. So the cost is what we call a net cost because it's a higher cost than a benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so the cost to you of option one is a net cost because it's more cost, high cost to medium benefit. It is a net benefit to your 2-year-old, and it is a net benefit to the 3-month-old. Okay. Now let's compare for option two, which is just the addition of the script. We're going to still see a net cost to the PDAer. Okay. So this is what I mean by two shitty options. Um, However, what we do see is that there is a net benefit to mom, her nervous system, you, Dominique. We see the same thing. So in both scenarios, you're seeing a net benefit for both your siblings to their nervous systems of the removal. So that doesn't change. But the main thing that we see a difference is your nervous system. Okay. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so what we see here now that we see like either option is going to activate the PDAer because you're setting a boundary. That's just what it is. Okay. And we can talk about what to do. I don't know if I'll have time to coach on that, but we can talk about the next step. But we do see a difference in your nervous system. And so what's coming up for you as you look at this?
Um, probably that why it would give me a benefit to my nervous system is, like, it would give me, like, a sense of control in pretty much feeling like I have no control. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Like a return to agency.
Yeah. Or like a plan, because right now I just feel like it's like the wild, wild west.
Totally. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I can send this to you or have Jake send it to you afterwards. Um, so I think what we see is that the best option for you, given that there is equalizing after school, is to have the plan of like, I am going to remove my 2-year-old, my 3-month-old. Maybe I prepare like a safe space that I have with like stuff for the 2-year-old, right? Like maybe a treat, maybe a weighted blanket, fidgets, whatever. It's like a location that you know you're going to go to and a script that you feel comfortable with. So, now is when we talk about the script. So, now that we've made a decision, that's when we move into the accommodations.
Okay.
Okay. So, often where parents get stuck is they try and use accommodations at the same time they're trying to figure out boundaries, and it's totally like conflated and confusing.
Almost like if I accommodate so much, I won't have to set boundaries because they'll be perfectly regulated.
Yeah. So, that never will happen.
Totally. And it's also hard because it's like she's 4. So it's like, what is, you know,
Yeah. Well, it
typical
won't happen just,
4-year-old
like, in a
behavior?
neurotypical family with 3 kids anyways. So, like,
Yes.
there will be activation, there will be more of it because you have a PDAer and because you have 3 kids and they're young, but the primary step that parents get stuck on is not the information about how to do accommodations or even what PDA is, it's the in-between decision-making stage, which you do before you decide on the accommodations.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've made our decision. This is just one instance, but now we can layer on, okay, let's use declarative language. Let's signal safety as we're delivering the message with regulation. Once everybody's safe, do we then move into de-escalation with the PDA or as an accommodation? Right? Like maybe the 3-month-old, you've got them in a little bouncer, you've got the 2-year-old set up with like a fidget and it could be an iPad, it could be like a little sensory station, and then we move into de-escalation when everybody's in a safe spot.
Mhm.
So let's get you a really good script that you feel comfortable with.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So when I say like your body's not safe right now, I'm going to do this. Do you like that? Or how does it feel for you as a script?
That feels good, and I feel like that would make sense to her. She already intuitively talks about her body, like, even before I knew about PDA, she was mentioning things about her body, so that
Great.
feels good.
Okay. So I like depersonalizing it because it's like all of us have a nervous system that sometimes drives us to do things we're not proud of. It doesn't mean that's who we are, it's just what we
Mhm.
experience. So for a 4-year-old, saying something like, "Your body is having a hard time, so mommy's gonna take Sally and John to the other room." Like, just as a regulated statement, and here's the key, Dominique, because you're gonna wanna teach. You're gonna wanna be like, "See, I'm doing this because of your behavior, and this is the consequence." Okay? Because that's normal. That's what we all wanna do of like, "See,
Mhm.
even if we're not doing a consequence, the energy behind it are."
Well, me taking my 2-year-old is her concept, that's how she feels it.
Totally. It is a consequence, but what we want you to have is like, I'm not trying to change her behavior with this. I am just cueing to the 2-year-old that she's safe and relaying to the 4-year-old this is what's happening, even if nothing changes with the behavior. So that's the energy we want to be into. And it is different Like they perceive it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So that's like the little energetic shift behind the delivery. So the more you can think of it as like a cue, like this is just what's happening rather than see when you do this, this is the consequence.
Yeah. No, I know like to not teach. We worked with like a parent coach before this, and so like
Yeah.
that really helped me learn never teach in the moment.
Yeah.
Always come back to it. Even though like this is a whole separate thing. I can't teach after either
You won't be able
because
to for a while.
okay,
Like it might be
because
a year or two.
yeah, like anytime I tried to like when we're like even like playfully talking about it or she brings it up,
Totally.
I
Yeah.
start to talk about it. Stop talking, mommy.
Just hold space. Just hold space.
Okay.
Okay. And know that she's going to be learning through osmosis through your behavior. So you don't have to explicitly teach. You want to act energetically in a way that you want her to learn.
Okay.
Okay, so what we
Yeah,
just
that seems so like that's a really hard thing for me to like I was a teacher for 12 years, so
yeah.
it's like it is hard for that shift is very hard for me.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
feels like I'm just I know I'm not. It just feels like I'm like putting my head in the sand and not
You're not
like
putting your head so
helping her thrive, you know?
you want to witness. So basically the whole goal is like you have this amazing child and they have this beautiful creative heart space and frontal lobe. And a lot of the time they can't access it and you can't see it. Right? And so what we're doing rather than like putting information or skills into a brain, rather we're just taking away the constraint of the threat response so that they can flourish and thrive. So the less we do to try and teach, and the more we can get into the energy of like, I am not here to control you. Yes, I'm going to be a steward and keep the guardrails on. The more she's going to learn by osmosis because she's going to perceive total safety with you. She's going to watch everything you do. Every time you de escalate, every time you like calmly set a boundary with a kind script, it's going to become for her what she learns is appropriate, right? Like,
Okay.
okay, my
Yeah.
nervous system activates, this happens. I know I need to do something safe. Mommy's going to handle this and then co regulate me. Like, that's going to be her model for when she's 20.
Okay.
So it doesn't feel like you're teaching, but you are teaching through your behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modeling. Yeah. Okay. That feels that feels good.
Okay. I know you had more questions, but we're at about 50 minutes and we do have another call. But it was an absolute pleasure to chat with you. I hope that we moved the needle a little bit.
Sorry, it froze.
Oh,
Okay, there you are. I missed your last sentence.
I just said, I hope that we moved the needle a little bit with the decision-making work we did.
Yes, I like that. If I have that, I can, input different scenarios into that.
Yeah, yeah, and so what we wanna do is just, like, anytime you're looking for a accommodation to solve a boundary, just shift it to, like, "What's my decision here?" And then go through the framework, and it will help you get unstuck.
Okay.
Thank you, Dominique. It was great to meet
Yes.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good luck with your 3 kiddos.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, I'm ready for Megan whenever she is ready.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
All right. How are you doing?
I'm good. Where are you tuning in from?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited to talk to you. Jake told me that you participated in the Paradigm Shift program. And I have your question here, but I also want to give you the opportunity to ask a new question, ask it how you want to ask it, or I can read it for you.
I can try to recall it. So I probably found at peace about a year ago. So I've worked my way through like all the podcasts, and I think that helped me a lot with acceptance. And so like I feel like I've done a lot of work to accept my son's PDA and his autism. And background, my son is 6 years old with autism and PDA, more of an, well, definitely an externalized expression. And I have an 11-year-old with known ADHD, but probably internalized PDA. But just because of the nature of the externalization, a lot of our energy right now goes into the first grader.
Understood. Yeah.
But like done a lot of work to accept it and even like celebrate it with them, and just in the spirit of trying to help them grow through their life, understanding their identity instead of like thinking there's something wrong with me their whole lives. But I always feel like there's just something holding me back from like the full like radical acceptance, because I'll notice in a moment that I still flip, like something just makes me flip to those authoritarian parenting styles in the middle of trying to do all the other things.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of like talking about it with a neuro-affirming therapist, and kind of started to explore and thinking that maybe like still like one of the things that holds me back is society's expectations and being worried about being judged by other parents. And so my question was kind of about what I can do to really break through to that radical acceptance, because it's that's where I want to be with him.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you've done a ton of work supporting their healthy self-concepts as neurodivergent kids. So there's two things that are coming up for me as we're talking. One is the nervous system side of things, and then the other side is like what we mean by radical acceptance. So where would you like to start?
Maybe the nervous system side of things.
Okay, great. So the first thing I want to say is that it's completely normal, no matter how much you accept your kids, to under stress revert to pathways that are deeply ingrained in us, right? And so it's not just I grew up in a more authoritarian household, or like, the culture where I live is a little bit more hierarchical, whatever it is. It's like, in an evolutionary sense, 90% of how our nervous system works is wired from like human fears about being kicked out of the tribe, right? So like there is no scenario in which it would be normal for you to not have somewhat of a nervous system response when you perceive that other people are judging your kids. Like if you take them to a restaurant and they're eating with their hands, or they're throwing things or screaming, or at a playground, like that is deeply wired in us as humans to like need to belong for safety. Right? So I struggle with that, right? I think all parents that I've worked with struggle with that. I think it's completely normal, and we might not ever completely rewire ourselves out of that, right?
Yeah.
But some of the things, so there's two things. Let's think about like, is what I'm saying resonating, or do you have another source, not just your evolutionary wiring as a human, but do you have another source of activation that's coming up either from your childhood or your own neurodivergence or fawn response, etc.?
I think it's a lot of those things. Like from what you're saying, I hear that it's actually a part of my survival to like revert to those parenting techniques, and to worry about what others are thinking. You know, our whole family in this household is neurodivergent. And I am probably internalized PDA. And so in those moments with him, I am extremely triggered at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my own upbringing was very authoritarian, where they're and I mean, I think that's kind of typical of the generation that raised folks who are currently in their 40s. But there was no answer but the parents' answer, and there weren't accommodations.
Yeah. And so you're going to have both your human wiring, which is like we're all designed to belong to a tribe, right?
Yeah.
And part of being a parent of a PDAer is that we don't fit into our proximate geographic tribe, right? Like the public school crew and our neighbors and like maybe our friends from college, even though we still love them, like it's just not the same, right? And so it can feel very isolating, and that does activate the nervous system for me as well, right? And then you have your conditioning and your own probably some trauma pathways from childhood, right? Where you might have a fawn response or an appeasement response when others judge you, right? And that's totally normal, right? And so I want to link this back into the radical acceptance piece because I think they're linked. And I'm not like a trauma healer. So I feel like it's a little bit outside of my scope to go in that direction, but I would be happy to talk to you about the trauma work that I've done after the radical acceptance. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say that you feel like you haven't crossed the threshold of radical acceptance about not caring what other people think, like, how do you understand that last threshold of radical acceptance? What do you think that looks like?
And I mean, I wonder if I just have that picture wrong, but to me, in those moments where I mean, it's probably more likely in a moment where there's a meltdown that I'm handling, or where there's an accommodation I'm needing to make that I was not ready to make in that moment. Like for example, yesterday he refused camp, and it was a really important work day for us.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I would love for my spirit to be able to say, this does suck, but also this is a part of this. And so this, as it is, can belong, without it completely derailing me and having to work through my own spiral before I land. Because like in my situation yesterday with camp refusal, I got there, but it took like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, of course it did. Like I had the same thing happen yesterday where my 6-year-old has been staying home from camp almost all summer. And then yesterday we had 5 meetings and my older son was like, I'm not going to go to camp either. And so it was just like every single plan went out the window. And I was super frustrated and annoyed and activated and also, shorter than I would have liked to have been right off the bat. So I think where radical acceptance can be hard to understand sometimes, and I struggle with it too, but if we can use it to establish a new baseline, it can help us through these moments. So the most simple way I think about radical acceptance is this moment without judgment. Okay, so what that means is not just, oh, both kids are home.
Mm-hmm.
I have to accept this, but rather first, oh, both kids are home and I feel like setting the house on fire because I'm so mad about it, right? And it's like accepting that is radical acceptance of like, oh my God, my nervous system totally activates when I have this loss of autonomy and when I don't get to do the things that I had planned. This is what happens in terms of my thoughts, my emotions, and my physical sensations. And some of that's really negative, right? Mm-hmm. Can I welcome that without judgment about myself?
Okay.
Right? So radical acceptance does not mean that we rise above the human experience. It means that when we're in the human experience, we're giving ourselves grace and compassion, right? So I hear you using this belongs for like, okay, it belongs that my kids need to stay home, or it belongs that they're having a meltdown, and that's amazing. But truly, like, in order to continually do that, we first have to accept everything that goes on inside of us that is part of the human experience of like, yeah, I derail for 3 hours when my kids stay home and I'm pissed and I'm not super accommodating. But the next 12 hours I will be, and that's my baseline. But like, yeah, it was imperfect. I didn't play with them as much as I needed to, and I wasn't as safe and social while delivering food. And I was snippy with my husband because he got to work all day and I had to be with the kids. And then returning.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, there was this, I'm going to botch it, but I'm going to try anyway. So there's this anecdote in Buddhism about enlightenment, right? Where there's these two monks and they're in this, each of them is in a cave. And one of them, like, they parade all these beautiful women through the cave and all these temptations and all of these things. And then they ask the monk, like, you know, what was his experience? And he's like, oh, I didn't even notice all of these temptations. I didn't want to be with these beautiful young women. I was totally immune to it. And then they talk to the other monk and he's like, yeah, I wanted to basically sleep with all these women and eat all the food and do all the things. He didn't do it, but he experienced all of that. And so they were like, oh, the monk that experienced that was the more enlightened one because he's telling the truth. Mm-hmm. The other one's not. Because we can't rise above the human experience as humans living here on Earth, right? We can work to have a different baseline, but radical acceptance is this moment without judgment of self. So like, there isn't like work that needs to be done to make you not be human. How does that feel?
Well, it feels like you just gave me permission to think the human thoughts I have, and I think it makes total sense because it aligns with all the.
Oops.
Can you
Sorry,
hear me okay?
You froze for a second. You said it makes sense with.
It aligns with the other struggles I have with like self-judgment, and it feels like, as you were talking about it, I'm wasting energy on feeling bad about just feeling what I can't control feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like, one place that I think can derail parents, myself included, for a long time in the beginning of my journey, was this idea about acceptance of neurodiversity, meaning we don't have any of the grief, resentment, anger, struggles that are presented to us by accommodating a neurodivergent child, right? And actually, what I think is that the more a parent is working to affirm and accommodate, the more is going to come up, because the more trade-offs they have, right? The more grief, resentment, rage, anger, frustration is going to come up because they're changing their life.
Yeah.
They're saying
of whatever you had in mind.
Yeah. And so, like, the dark thoughts, like, I will tell you, I've had them all. I've had very, very dark thoughts, but it's not who I am and it's not who you are. Right? And you can still unconditionally love and accommodate and commit to your children and still sometimes want it to be a different life and wish they didn't have PDA and wish that your nervous system worked differently or whatever. I think that's what's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's not a popular thing to like say on social media because it's nuanced, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course. That's not what we come here for.
Yeah. Like, at your core, and I believe this, at your core, like, you are perfect. You are an expression of divinity or God or a soul or whatever it is. And that can never be perfected or corrupted. It just is. Right? But we're here on Earth having this human experience, which is hard and complex and paradoxical, and there's suffering. And so the more we can separate ourselves as the watcher of like, oh, I'm having ruminating thoughts about how I hate having, to accommodate, welcome thoughts, and not judge ourselves because it's not who we are. We're just experiencing those thoughts. The more we can do that and separate from it, the more easy it gets to see like, oh, that's just my brain thinking. Oh, that's just my nervous system going off again because I'm human.
Which I feel like I can do that for the kids, and the piece that's missing is just extending basically that same accommodation and understanding to myself and to my husband.
Totally. And the more you can do it for yourself with like truly observing like, whoa, look at all this stuff going on inside of me, it really facilitates compassion for others because you realize like, oh my gosh, so many of my behaviors are driven by my own perception of threat, whether or not you're PDA, right? Mm-hmm. Or, oh my gosh, there's so many negative thoughts tormenting me, or wow, my emotions are really driving the bus here. And it's like you realize that that's what other people and our children are experiencing. And it's harder to have a lot of judgment or disdain for people or other humans who are experiencing the same thing that you are. Maybe for different reasons, but it's like we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah, no, I think that helps a lot. And it's probably one of those things that like parents like us going through it already know, but just need someone to give us permission to like accept that part of ourselves too.
Yeah. So one of the teachers that I love for help with this is Tara Brach. Okay. And she has a lot of like free meditations on Spotify, which are like the practice of RAIN. So like recognize what's going on inside of you. So like yesterday, for those 2 or 3 hours, like just recognize and observe like, oh, I have tightness in my chest and I want to like smash a wall in. Okay. Allow it. Investigate. Right? Like, where did this come from? Is it attached to that 90% of my wiring from my human evolution of not wanting to be thrown out of the tribe? Is it from my childhood? Is it from my own neurodivergence? And then the last part is of the N of RAIN is nurture. Like nurture yourself. So I often do those meditations to help me come back to that non-judgment and self-compassion. And even if you can't like sit and meditate, which I think is pretty hard for a lot of us, like you can just put it in your earbud and like listen to the rain when you feel like you're judging yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was going to be like my follow-up question. Like, you know, are there things that I can do to kind of help myself get into that habit of being aware of what's actually happening?
Yeah. So the best practice that I've done in moments where I'm not activated to start practicing that awareness of what's going on inside of me is just the meditation practice. And I use Tara Brach. It can be hard to do that with PDAers at home, with rumination, your own neurodivergence. The other tool that I've really loved is havening, which is like a 2-minute practice where you bring yourself havening touch like this, like on your arms or your face or your hands. And you say an affirmation that's like a what if statement. So your amygdala is not like, that can never happen. So it's like, what if I am safe? Right? And just like, what if I am safe? And doing that for 2 minutes every morning and before you go to bed. Or it could be, what if I'm perfect exactly as I am? Or, one I've been doing recently is what if things could turn out better than ever expected? Like as my younger one gets close to burnout, of just like trying to wire myself for the possibility that this won't be so negative.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if like things like that could even help before I get into the thick of it.
Oh yeah, before. Yeah. So like during, my kids would be like, "What are you doing?" No, it's like what I do when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or like between food deliveries, or if I'm sitting outside their room, I'm like, what if I could be patient? Yeah. But yeah, I don't think the key here is like, you don't have to work to be perfect with any of this. Like you can just be and allow yourself to just be human in this experience and know that like you're already doing a great job and you don't have to accept every frustration.
Yeah. And I think like my tendency is always so future focused. And I know that that's dangerous with these variables. And like, I just continue to remind myself, especially with my externalized PDAer, that I think he's actually the only thing in my life that's ever been able to help me focus on the present.
Yeah.
Because that's all I can. Because if I think about like how refusing camp went today and how that means in 3 weeks when we track back into school that he's going to refuse, like I'll just go down a worry spiral and it won't change whether it happens or not.
Yeah.
So it's been I don't know how to put it, but it's been an interesting test of what of how I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I often think like my son has taught me like what I needed to learn during this human experience of like, Casey, stop trying to control everything, like control everyone around you, whether it's through people pleasing or expectations, or if I'm perfect, then people will respond to me in X way. We don't even realize how much we're bracing and trying to keep ourselves safe. Yeah. You're doing it. We're doing it. Well, I hope that supported you a little bit.
It did. I think I needed that today, and especially going into the weekend.
Yeah, it's all good. All right. It was nice to see you again, Megan.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That was our first live show. Big thanks to Dominique and Megan for being vulnerable and sharing their questions. And we will see you all here next Friday at 10. All right. Bye, everyone.